After 2 long years, it finally feels as though Mason Mount is a proper Manchester United player. He finally feels like he's settled into the club, and he finally feels ready to play a key part for this side. I think since his time here, he's had two main problems. One has obviously been fitness. He's been injured a lot. Fingers crossed, and I mean it, fingers crossed. Hopefully he is over a lot of those issues now. He's been available for 10 of the last 11 match days, stretching back to last season. And that momentum has of course given him the opportunity finally to build some sharpness and build his way into the team and build an understanding with his teammates of course. The other problem that Mason Mount has always had is he feels like one of those players who is a little bit in between. I think when we talk about him positionally, he's not quite a winger, he's not quite a 10, he's not quite a central midfielder. So what Ruben Amorim has done is he's taken an in-between player in Mason Mount and he's put him in between. He's put him in a position where he can play inside or he can play outside. He's put him in a position where he can play long or short and the ability to come towards the ball or to spin in behind and stretch the opposition. Of course, we are talking about the left 10 position. The only problem is he does have a lot of competition from Matheus Cunha, but that's not a bad thing. Manchester United have had a poor, weak, frail squad for a long time. Suddenly, if Mason Mount can stay fit and in this position, we have squad depth, which is absolutely lovely. And today I'm going to tell you why Mount is so good at this role in a left 10 for Ruben Amorim. Now, the first reason why Mason Mount is so suited to this position is because it allows him to facilitate, and he himself is a facilitator, so that goes hand in hand and works quite nicely. When I use the fancy word facilitator, what I'm talking about is a player who works well for himself, but also works well for others. He links with his teammates well, he understands the way that his teammates want to receive passes, but also he's willing to make selfless runs off the ball to create space and things like that. He works hard for himself, but he also works hard for his teammates. And I think this position allows him to do that because in terms of close proximity, he's got close proximity to the centre forward in this system. He's got close proximity to one of our central midfielders. He's also got proximity with our wing back on that side of the pitch. And of course, also the centre back when they get involved. So when Mason Mount is playing in this position, it gives him the license to affect so many different players. He can stretch in behind to help out Matheus Cunha, who can drop deeper, or he can drop deeper towards the centre-backs to receive the ball. He can move towards Bruno Fernandes to help out in midfield. They can even rotate. Mason Mount has the off-ball running ability, but also extreme intelligence to help his teammates in these positions. Now, as well as doing excellent work off the ball, making his movements to try and help his teammates, Mason Mount is also good when he's got the ball at his feet, which is quite handy for a football player. But Mason Mount is technically, I think, incredibly underrated or underappreciated. I think because he does so much work off the ball, you know, his intensity is amazing, and we'll come back to that shortly. We almost forget that he also brings Manchester United a lot on the ball. And again, perhaps it's because he is one of those in-between players where you're not sure of his best position. But I think what you've got here is an incredibly technically secure player. A player who can receive the ball on the back foot and is actually brilliant when doing so. He is excellent on the half turn and sort of getting away from the opposition, which gives United this brilliant method of ball progression. He may not have the 40-yard carry that Matheus Cunha possesses, but he certainly has that ability to play on the half turn, to let the ball roll across his body, to change the momentum of the Manchester United attack. He also has the ability to drop deeper, get on the ball and play in these areas, but I really love him in the half space under pressure. His back to goal work is very good, and that's what United need in this system. Amorim needs players that you can stick the ball into in these areas and they're gonna look after it. They're gonna have a good first touch. Physically, they can handle themselves. They can deal with contact, like Mason Mount in this clip here up against Saliba. Dealing with it, he's got the strength to protect the ball. Also, the intelligence, the way that he uses his body. He's just an all-round very intelligent player, and it allows him to link and protect the ball in these moments, which of course gives United that route forward. Something else that Mount possesses, which was particularly on display against Arsenal, was a longer range passing ability. Not something we associate with his game, not something I even really talk about when we talk about Mount, but what we saw against Arsenal was a player that could regularly drop deep and switch the ball, and that is potentially incredibly useful for United, because when you start in this high 10 left position in this area here, when you drop deep, the opposition don't want to follow you. You see the central midfielder doesn't really want to go out there because he wants to protect his centre-backs. The centre-back doesn't want to go out there because he wants to protect his goalkeeper. The full-back can't really go because they're being tied up by a wing-back. So when someone like Mount drops into this position, he does actually get a little bit of time. And the fact that he's then right-footed, playing on the left-hand side, allows him to sort of curve the ball out wide to the other side. If he was left-footed, it would curve the ball this way, right? Which means the ball is initially going towards the opposition, which isn't ideal. You know, it's a more difficult pass. It's swerving in towards the opposition. And by the time that ball sort of curls back outwards to your teammate, the opposition has the ability to be aggressive and get out towards you. However, if we just quickly get rid of that, and now imagine that Mason Mount is right-footed, which he is, so we don't need to imagine, when he's switching the ball, when he's playing that ball to the far side, it's curling the other way and into a better path for his teammate to control the ball. His teammate doesn't need to be scared of the opponent coming towards him, because actually it allows his teammate, potentially Dalot, potentially Ahmad, potentially Mbumo, to get on the front foot. So as this ball is coming over, swerving initially away from the opposition and then into a more forward area, it allows us to get after the ball. And these directional changes are incredibly useful for United. We know that we like to sort of overload one side of the pitch. We're going to use the wide centre-back, the wing-back, the inside forward, central midfielder. We might have a striker over there as well. If we're crowding one side of the pitch, that's fun, that's good. You know, it means we can play short, it means we can combine, and Mount is very good at that. But also, sometimes you need a release valve. You need a way to get away from the pressure. If you can't always play in here, you need a way to get away from it. And I don't know that Manchester United massively possess that, typically. Dorgu isn't a player who's going to drop deep and switch it with his right foot, is he? Luke Shaw doesn't really have the passing angle from this side, not to play the sort of pass that we're talking about. Of course, Bruno does, but having that extra player in Mason Mount gives United a different way to stretch the play. And when you've got, again, Dalot and Mbumo, maybe Ahmad on this side, isolated against fullbacks, that's obviously valuable to Ruben Amorim. I think the overall point with Mount from this position is that it plays to his instincts, or it allows him to play to his instincts. He doesn't seem like he's overthinking when he plays in this system and this role. It just feels like he knows what he's doing. Everyone calls him sort of a teacher's pet with a manager. He's not a teacher's pet, he's just clever. He just reads the game very well. Situations like this, you don't actually see him even look, but he knows where Patrick Dorgu is. He's just an intelligent footballer. He knows what to do next. And without meaning to sound too harsh, Manchester United haven't had the most intelligent football players at the club for the past few years. There, I said it. I'm sorry, but I think it's true. We haven't had the most intelligent players. When we suddenly get one like Mount, and we ask him to play his natural game, it obviously helps him. And in terms of his natural game, something that we know he loves to do when he plays on the left-hand side, and he moves towards his half space, what he wants to do is work the ball to his right foot. And if you are on the left side, working the ball to your right foot, it's going to lead to one thing. Shots like this, shots like this. Mason Mount is deadly from these positions, and it's been great to see him really growing in confidence to shoot from these positions more regularly. Now, when we're talking about Mason Mount, there is also one thing that we can't miss out, we can't skip. It's his intensity and his work rate, his dedication and his mindset. Mason Mount is one of those players that managers absolutely adore. Perhaps fans never truly appreciate them because we don't see what they do in training every week. We don't see how they carry out the manager's methods and his plans on the pitch. Mason Mount is, like we've said already, a player who just seems to get it. Tactically, a very intelligent player, particularly with what he does off the ball as well, his intelligence when pressing. But it's the work rate, what you want as a manager. And I think what we demand as football fans, at the absolute bare minimum, of course we want good players, but if players can't perform every week, what we do want is intensity and work rate. And I don't know that we have ever seen Mason Mount play a game where he doesn't give 100% of his effort. Now, some people use that almost as a criticism. They go, well, all Mason Mount does is run. That's not a bad thing. You know, we shouldn't use that as a stick to beat Mount with. Just because he's incredible defensively, we shouldn't use that as a thing against him. Being a good player that can press from the front will be really useful for United, particularly in some of the biggest games. Cunha and Mbumo got a lot of credit the other day, but Mason Mount was also a player that led the press and was also willing to track all the way back to help out his teammate in deeper positions. That's the sort of player you need over the course of the season. Someone that can come into the team and you know immediately they're going to give you a minimum 7 out of 10 every week. I think the only thing that I would personally say about Mason Mount, if I was looking to criticise or give him an area of improvement, it would be that final third impact still. I think a little bit deeper, he's doing great work. The way he looks after the ball, the way he brings others into the game, the way he allows us to change direction on the attack. I think that's beautiful. I love it. The runs he makes off the ball to help his teammates. It's all fantastic stuff. And of course, in the final third, he has chipped in with some goals recently. I'm going to challenge him to be more creative, to produce more moments in the final third where he just threads the eye of a needle or he clips the ball over the defence, which they're just not expecting. Can he give us that little bit of magic? Can he become a game breaker in the final third? Right now, he isn't that, and perhaps that's okay. Not all footballers have to have that goal dust in the final third, but I would love it if Mount could develop to have it. And the way for him to do that is to stay fit like he has done recently. Long may that continue. If he can continue to do that, he's just going to understand his teammates better and better. He already seems to know what the manager wants of him. He's very clued on. He's a switched on player, very intelligent. If he can then develop that natural understanding with your teammates, which I think you only get by playing 90 minutes week in, week out, then he really could be a special player for Manchester United and of huge value. Now, like I said at the start, there is that problem of we just spent 60 million on a player in that position, and Matheus Cunha. But again, that's depth. We're allowed to have multiple players for one position. We're allowed to have players competing. It can only be positive. Cunha cannot let his standards slip because he knows that Mount will take the spot. And it also works the other way around as well. Mount also has the luxury of being just incredibly versatile. Again, thanks to his intelligence, he can play up front as a false 9, even if it's not ideal. He can play in the right 10. I even think he could do a job in the midfield as well. Mason Mount he's just a brilliant squad player and a manager's dream. So yes, those are my thoughts on Mason Mount and his future under Ruben Amorim at Manchester United. I think it's the perfect manager for him and the perfect system, and that left 10 role in particular is ideal. They go together beautifully, and I think Mason Mount, if he can stay fit, will continue to perform there. And I think by the end of the season, we're going to be talking about him as a player that was really, really useful for what was or will hopefully be a successful campaign for Manchester United. I think if we are to have a good year, it will involve Mason Mount staying fit and playing regularly. 90 minutes every week is going to be a little bit hard to come by due to the competition and lack of matches. But if there's a player with the work rate and the mindset to try and take that chance to try and break into the team, I honestly think it's Mason Mount. It's going to be interesting to see what he does till the end of the season. I do still want more. Give us more magic in the final third. Break teams down, particularly against stodgy defences. Do that, and I think he can become a fan favourite. So that's the challenge for you, Mason Mount. That is what you got to do moving forward in the future. But in terms of right now, there's nothing left to do. Apart from leave a like on the video, perhaps. Maybe subscribe to the channel and get notifications on. That would be pretty splendid. But apart from that, I will see you in the next one. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll catch you later.